Welcome. My name is Reverend Claire Summerhill, and I'm so happy that you decided to join us today. It's such a gift to come together in community, to share, to learn, to explore, to think about new ideas. I believe that the universe is always communicating with us. We are surrounded by messages from the universe, messages of love, requests to wake up and take notice, opportunities to learn, but a lot of the time we're not paying attention. So at the beginning of each of our services together, I like to take a minute. We could call this a prayer. Some people call it an invocation. And basically, it's our chance to say to the universe, we're paying attention. We come together, we go into the silence together, and we announce, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm listening. So let's go into prayer together. And this is what I know. I know that the universe is always sending us messages, talking to us, communicating with us in everything we see and all we experience. And right now, we are paying attention. We are listening. We are aware. And as we know that, and as we open ourselves, we declare we are ready to be inspired. We are ready to be opened. We are ready for our consciousness to be raised and to experience our oneness, our unity with all that is. We're ready, we're willing, and we are so grateful that we have these times to come together, to share, to hear beautiful music, to be inspired. So we know that this time together unfolds in perfect order. And knowing that, we affirm together, and so it is. So as those of you who join us frequently may be aware, we have been talking in our midweek service about the creative process. And so much of what Ernest Holmes, our founder, taught is about this creative process. We are creative beings, but sometimes we forget that or we don't know how to use our creative power. And we may ask, you may have this question, is it really possible for me to create what I want in my life, to bring it into form? And over again, Ernest Holmes said in so many ways, a resounding and exuberant, yes, yes, you can. So today, the title of my message is Awake and Arise. Here's what Ernest Holmes said. We are on the path of experience, just waking to the real fact of our true being. As we awake, we find we are surrounded by many false conditions, but there is something within which remembers the real state. Now, this process of awakening, of remembering who we really are, of coming to ourselves, is an integral and important part of our ability to create. So much of our time we spend in what I call a kind of oblivion, drowsy, half asleep, not noticing. And when we're in that space, we really don't have much power to create. That's where we're surviving, trying to make do, trying to get by, just keep things, maintain the status quo. That's not a creative space. So as we look at awakening, we're going to tie this to how that relates to our ability to create. Now, as we've been looking at the creative process, we've also been looking at the creative endeavor that our center, is undertaking right now. Now, our center's in the midst, as many of you know, of a great creative project. We have taken on recreating ourselves as a center, creating something brand new. This involves a new senior minister to replace our minister that retired after 20 years of serving us. It involves creating, welcoming, preparing for a new place to meet after selling our building that has served us for almost 60 years. And it involves creating a new sense of who we are. Who are we as a community? If we believe, as is the truth, that we can create whatever we can imagine, what we can create as a center is only limited by what we can see in terms of how it feels, how we relate to each other, how we support each other, how we come together as one. Now, we've talked about, as part of the creative process, we create what's called a mental equivalent. We use our thoughts to create in mind that which we want to bring into reality. And I hope some of you have had some experience practicing with this, creating this mental equivalent. And the clearer it is, the more detailed, the more likely it is for the universe to respond in kind. You know, it's kind of like if you say, I would like a new dress. And the place you're talking to says, well, what kind do you want? Like what color, what size, what style? And you say, oh, whatever, just send me something. What are the chances you're going to get something that you like? No, the more specific we can be, whatever it is, that allows the universe to fill that mold and for us to bring what we envision into form. So we've looked in terms of our center at our mental equivalent. Now, our mental equivalent for the center, what we're creating for our center, we call it our new minister sacred covenant. It's basically a promise that we are making to the universe of what we're willing to do to bring what we envision into form. This works the same way, whether it's our center's creative project or your individual creative endeavors. What are you willing to receive? What are you ready to receive? And in terms of our center, we identified some very specific things. So we started out by looking at the idea of wholeness. Now, the phrase from our covenant says, I know that my new minister is a revelation of God as wholeness. For your own lives, as you're creating, you might say, I know that as my life unfolds, I am a revelation of God as wholeness. So you start there. You start seeing yourself as a revelation of God, not as a person who's lacking something and needs something and wants something. Start with knowing yourself as a revelation of God, an expression of the divine. And then the next things we looked at are love and compassion, being inspired and inspiring, and being a leader. Now here's the phrase from our covenant. As I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister revealed to me as a loving, compassionate, inspired leader. And for ourselves, as I accept the good the universe so generously and continuously gives me, I accept myself and know myself as a loving, compassionate, inspired leader. Now, we've said over and over again, like attracts like. What we are trying to create, either as a center or in our own lives, is not something coming from outside of us to rescue us, to save us. No, it starts within the inner work. And as we become more and more of what we want to attract, more and more of that comes to us. Now, this covenant, if you don't know, is available on our website. And if you haven't, I'd encourage you to go look at it. It's a wonderful example of what a mental equivalent looks like and something you could use as you seek to create in your own life. Now, the next section of it has 6 statements of what we're knowing for our new minister. And these are the same in creating a new minister or in creating what we want for our life, because it's all one. And we're going to be looking at those. As we become a healing presence, we attract those who are a healing presence and who heal us. As we accept more good in ourselves, more good comes to us. That's how the creative process works. So, this is an ongoing reminder that it's an expanding of ourselves that allows what we seek to create to come into form. That's a critical part, a critical piece of this. So the phrase we're kind of focusing on today says, I know this truth for myself. I am awakening the divine being that I am. This is a reminder that we're awakening. Now, if we think in terms of what we want in our lives, the kind of experiences we want in our lives, the kind of new minister that we envision coming in to lead our center, that's what we see, someone who is awake and who's awakening us, who creates that space to support us in our awakening. So you could use this even as a meditation, mantra. I am awakening to the divine being I am. I am awakening to the divine being I am. Now, it's interesting as we think about this. Some of you may know this. In 1927, Ernest Holmes was asked to summarize the basic tenets and beliefs of this science of mind philosophy that he was teaching. And he wrote 11 clear, concise statements of what we believe. These are, if you receive the Science of Mind magazine, have been in the Science of Mind magazine every month now for almost 100 years. They're also available online if you simply search for Declaration of Principles or Ernest Holmes. You'll see those, or Science of Mind. And one of my favorites on this list says this: we believe that heaven is within us, and we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. We believe that heaven is within us, and we experience it to the degree we become conscious of it. So what's that saying? Heaven isn't a place to get to or to earn. It's a state of consciousness. And as we experience it, we become more and more conscious of it. It's like I'm saying about the creative process. So, of course, we ask, how can I become more conscious? How can I awaken? And if I do sometimes sense that I'm awakening, we have that experience, of your mind expanding. How do I stay there longer and more often? That's the ongoing question. So I want to share a story with you that gives us a lot of ideas about this awakening process. Now, this story, it's estimated by scholars that it was written somewhere between the year 40 or the year 60 and the year 140, that many years after the birth of Jesus. The manuscripts on which it was written were discovered in 1945 in Egypt at a place called near Nag Hammadi. The books they found there are called the Nag Hammadi Library. And this particular one The story was from a book called The Acts of Thomas the Apostle. And we don't know if he actually wrote it or not, or if it was attributed to him. I'm going to read this because it's so beautiful. And let's share it together. When I was but a little child and lived in the kingdom of my parents and enjoyed the wealth and splendor of those who raised me, my parents decided to send me on a journey away from our homeland in the east. They did not, however, send me forth without provisions, for from the abundance of our treasury they gathered a bundle for me. It contained gold and silver and opal, and they girded me about with adamant, a metal light to carry but strong enough to crush iron. Great was the burden of these provisions, yet light they were also, so that I could bear them alone. My splendid robe of glory, which in their love my parents had made for me, they now removed from my shoulders, and also the purple mantle that was made to fit me perfectly. And they made an agreement with me, which they wrote on my heart so that I might never forget it. If you will go down into Egypt and bring the one pearl, the one sacred pearl, back to us, which reposes in the middle of the sea, guarded by a roaring serpent, then upon your return, you will take back upon you your robe of glory and our kingdom. All that we have shall be yours. So I left Egypt. I left the east and passed over the several lands that lay between the east and the land of Egypt. In Egypt, I traveled to a place that was near where the serpent lived. There I established myself in an inn, there to wait until the serpent slept, so that I might take the pearl from him. I met a person there who was of my own kind, and he warned me to guard myself against the Egyptians. So I disguised myself, wearing the garb of the Egyptians, so they might not discover my purpose and arouse the serpent against me. Nevertheless, they soon recognized that I was not one of them. They feigned friendship for me and persuaded me to drink of the drink they mixed for me and to partake of the food they prepared for me. This was a great calamity for me, as the food and drink of the Egyptians caused me to fall into a swoon of forgetfulness. I no longer knew that I was the child of a king, and I began to serve their king instead. I forgot all about the pearl that my parents had sent me to retrieve from the dragon's grasp. My parents were aware of what had befallen me and grieved for me. Calling their great ones together, they wrote a letter to me, and each one who loved me signed it. The letter said, "From your father, the King of Kings, and your mother, the ruler of the East, to you, our child in Egypt, greetings. Awake now, and arise out of your deep sleep, and remember who you are. Remember also the pearl for which you have traveled this long way to the land of Egypt, and remember too your robe of glory and your splendid mantle, so that the time may come that you may return to us, and these may rest once more upon your noble and graceful shoulders." After writing this letter, it rose up in the shape of an eagle, and it flew until it arrived beside me, where I heard it in the voice of my father and mother as if they were speaking to me. Upon reading it, my memory returned to me. I knew that I was the offspring of royalty and that my soul was born to freedom. I also remembered the pearl. I proceeded to enchant the roaring serpent by singing to it of the truth of who I was. The dragon slept, and I seized the pearl and turned toward my home in the east. I cast off the impure garment of the dwellers of this land. On my way, the letter guided me with its light, which shone before me. The voice encouraged me against my fear, and its love drew me on. As I neared my home, my parents sent their servants to bring to me my robe of glory. I no longer remembered its magnificence because I had been gone so long from my home. But all of a sudden, when I saw it, the splendid robe of glory looked more and more like my own reflection. The distinction between it and myself melted away, so that we were no longer two, but one, in single union. I came to observe the robe in its splendor. It was adorned in glorious colors. Upon it were gold and divers jewels. The image of the King of Kings was depicted all over it, rippling and shimmering. I also perceived that the robe was about to speak to me, and the sound of great hymns resounded in my ears as it fell down on me. And this robe poured itself entirely down upon me with regal movements, and it leaped out of the hands of those who held it, so that it might come down to rest upon me. And I loved it so greatly that I ran toward it to receive it. I reached up toward it and enveloped myself in its glorious colors, having clad myself entirely in that royal robe of glory, this robe of light, this beautiful robe of brilliant color. Clothed in my shimmering robe of glory, knowing myself as my true self, I ascended to the gate of my Father. There I met my father and my mother and all the nobles of the kingdom, and my parents were jubilant as they received me. And with a mighty voice of music, we joined in praise as one voice in a great celebration of joy. Of course, this young man in the story is all of us. We're on a journey. We were sent on our way with love, with everything we need from those who sent us, those who love us. And we're on our way on this quest to claim this precious pearl that represents our true self, who we are, our purpose in life, joy, peace. We've been given all we need, but we've forgotten who we are and what it is that we're about. But the messages from the universe continue. It's whispering to us, wake up, remember who you are, remember what's possible. Remember you're incredibly blessed, that you have power and energy and strength, and you have gifts to share. Remember. And when we do remember and we wake up, the song says, he sang to the dragon, for the dragon fell asleep. The dragon, of course, represents all that's holding us back, our negative beliefs, our distorted thoughts, the false conclusions we've come to about how reality works. And as we sing, express our gifts, those fade away like the dragon going to sleep. And this description of the robe basically calls to mind that there's more available to us that we can even imagine. He'd forgotten. That's who he was, that magnificent person. So I do want to say that wherever you are on your journey is the perfect place to be. Some of us wake up, then we fall back to sleep and forget. Some of us are still kind of striving to wake up. We're aware that there's another state of being, another way to be, another way to experience life. Some of us that are perhaps a little more awake are facing the dragon, facing the challenges, dealing with healing parts of us that still need to be healed, that aren't whole. And that opportunity has come up for us to see that, for us to experience it. Perhaps some of us are in the space of being kind of intoxicated by the food and drink of the Egyptians. And we're so involved in that we've forgotten, like who we are and what we're meant to do. So just as in this story, our challenge is to wake up, to remember, and everything we do is to support us in that. When we pray, when we meditate, when we study, when we give, when we serve, all of those are aimed at this goal. Wake up, remember who you are. Now, as we awaken And this, of course, is often a gradual process, and it's a process of awakening and then falling back to sleep and having to remember again. As we do that, our creative abilities expand. That's the relationship of awakening to using our creative powers. When we're asleep, we don't believe we can create, we don't see what's possible, and we can't use those powers. When we remember, we're sparkles of that divine light. Then our light begins to spread out and awaken and touch and inspire those around us. That's the gift of awakening. Let's take a minute to go into prayer together. You know, I like to say that prayer is not about asking. Prayer is about knowing. And here's what I know right here and right now. I am awakening. I'm awakening to my full potential. I'm awakening and remembering who I am. I am a person of power, a person with gifts to share. I am remembering that I am loved and supported and that what I need is always provided to me. And because we are one, we are all one, I know that what is true for me is true for all of you, for everyone listening. We are beings of light, and we are awakening. We are awakening, we are listening, we are paying attention. We are opening ourselves to inspiration, to light. From this place of knowing the truth of who we are, I make this declaration today. I step forward in power. Each person here steps forward in their power, awakening, creating, bringing into form that which they envision, welcoming, loving, sharing, as we join in community, a community of love, a community of joy. And this is what I know for our center, that as we come together as community, combining our creative energy, our creative power, we are preparing ourselves. We are saying, I'm ready for the right and perfect minister to guide us, to partner with us, to inspire us, to share with us. We are ready for the right and perfect place for us to gather together. And we are ready and willing to accept our center as a new expression of the divine. We give thanks. We give thanks for the opportunity to come together in love. We give thanks for the ability to awaken, the chance to practice. We give thanks for each other. We give thanks for the messages the universe continues to send us, showering us, spreading its word. And knowing this in gratitude and joy, we affirm together. And so it is.